Hey guys, my name is Mitsumiao, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for today is, do you think that Warden and Nøkk need access to an ACOG? It seems like they're a little underwhelming right now. So you are definitely not the only one that has brought this up. It seems like a lot of people are finding the two new operators to be fairly lackluster, and I can definitely see where they're coming from. Warden in particular doesn't seem to really do a whole lot. I've probably put more than 10 hours on the technical test server so far, probably more like 15, and I've been maybe able to use his gadget 5 times total in an actual scenario where it did something. That's about it. Now, this could be contributed to a lot of factors, and one of them is simply that a lot of people right now that are playing on the technical test servers aren't trying to be ultra competitive. They're just messing around. They don't have advanced tactics. They're not playing with their friends. They're with a bunch of randoms, and so they're not putting down smoke screens. They're not communicating and trying to actually pull off a smoke plant, and so the result of that is you never have these situations where you're actually able to use his gadgets. On top of that, because he's that new operator, most people aren't even trying to run smoke because they know they're going to be countered by Warden. That said though, I do think that things are going to get better for him. Once that honeymoon phase is over and no one is always playing as Warden every single time on defense, offense obviously is then going to get more comfortable to run smokes. They're going to run those tactics, and at higher competitive levels like Platinum and Diamond, where I think he's going to thrive a lot more because those tactics become a lot more useful, then he is going to have a bit more place. But I will admit, at least right now, these first couple of days, he does seem incredibly lackluster, but I think it's a bit too early to tell if he does need an upgrade, especially with an ACOG. The same story seems to be true for Nøkk. A lot of people were thinking that she was going to be incredible, this awesome stealthy operator that could sneak on the objective and catch a lot of people by surprise. And when those moments happen, they feel amazing, but she's also limited because she has a lot of counters. Probably the biggest one is the refill on her gadget. You don't really stay stealth for that long. Now, obviously, this is for balancing reasons. They don't want you being stealth for like a minute, but you can pretty much just make your way down a long hallway and that's it before you're back on the cameras. And so I think she's going to also be very selective like Warden. These are going to be situational operators. And honestly, I think that this is a good thing. We don't want to have another Lion, Blackbeard, or Nomad situation where their gadgets just completely change the way you have to play on every single one of the maps. Just kind of flip the table over. Some people might like that because it definitely spices up the game, but if it disrupts it too much, it can get pretty frustrating. And so I think that by actually making them a little lackluster right now and maybe boosting their power along the way would probably be a better way of handling things. And so in that respect, I really like the way they designed these operators. And so let me know what you guys think about these two characters. Do you think that Ubisoft needs to give them some sort of improvement like an ACOG? Do you think that their gadgets should maybe last longer? Do you think that they're in a good place right now and they don't need to be touched? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. It is a tough call right now. The next question comes from Jason, and it is, why do you think Rainbow Six are using the old weapons for the new operators? Do you find it concerning for future operators? Yeah, I do share these concerns. I think the rumor that's going around right now is that the reason why we are getting this reused content is that Ubisoft, or at least the developers that are working on it right now, are a bit understaffed. Now, this is a rumor, so take it with a grain of salt, but apparently they shifted developers from Siege and moved it on over to their new game, Ghost Recon Breakpoints. And while I can see why they would do this, they would want their new game to be successful, they want it to be well polished when it releases. Of course, for Rainbow Six Siege, it's a bit of a downer. Another theory that I have is that apparently Nøkk was going to have a different weapon. If you look at her outfit and what she has on her person, those aren't used with the FMG9 or the weapons that she has available right now. Ubisoft was going to give her something that was a bit stronger. In development though, they realized with her gadget along something that hit a bit harder was just a bit too strong. It would be overpowered, and so that's why she has what she has. And so if they do have less developers on staff right now, or maybe just simply because it was too far in development when they made this realization, they had to scrap that original weapon, and then they just went with, of course, what we have right now. that's another distinct possibility. I think what's really going to matter is what happens with this next season. If this becomes a trend, then yes, I'm going to be very disappointed. I'm still disappointed right now. One of the things I've always loved about Rainbow Six Siege is having that variety. Being able to use a new gadget is great. That's probably the real meats and potatoes of how the season is going to shift and change, but also the weapons that they have at their disposal. Each one is unique and different. You have to master it. Some are more enjoyable and some are weaker, but that is the thing that makes this game really enticing for a lot of players, is jumping on in, having a new character to play with that actually uses a slightly different weapon that plays differently. Now that that's been taken away, of course, people are disappointed. And so I really think that next season is going to be quite telling. People could even argue that the gadgets that we got are reused as well. Vigil and Cav make Nøkk, Ying, and Glaz makes Warden's gadget. Like, they're not really all that inspirational. Now, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because eventually we are going to have these overlaps. There's only so many ways to introduce a new character that brings in a brand new dynamic. Like, I fully understand that, but I really do believe that this next season is not necessarily going to make or break, but it is, I think, going to tell what the future of Siege is going to be. The next question comes from Marcel, and it is, what do you think about a new operator in Siege who has 2 drones that cannot jump, but both drones would be invisible, still countered by mutes and mozzies, and they would have a small outline, but would be very hard to spot? The amount of times I could have gotten a kill on a defender holding angles, but they moved because they saw my drone, is a lot. It would be nice to be able to surprise roamers or even anchors by stealthily seeing where they are without them knowing. Well, admittedly, you may have just perfectly described why this shouldn't be something that they introduced into Rainbow Six Siege. One of the great things about this game is the interaction between offense and defense, the give and take, and that's especially true for droning. As soon as you do actually drone into the objective, if you're not stealthy enough with it, defense is either going to take it out or they're going to move, so obviously they're not put at a massive disadvantage. But as soon as you remove that, imagine how annoying it's going to be where someone rounds the corner consistently because you had no idea that a drone was there, and they're able to drop you immediately. You could even take it a step further. You did mention that you're not able to jump with these, so you probably wouldn't be able to put them into really stealthy, sneaky spots, so that is one balancing component, and I like that. But at the same time, you could have this placed on the objective somewhere, because it does have this stealth component. You could then have someone constantly spotting who's ever on the objective, or just simply making callouts. And so all in all, well, I definitely see where you're coming from, and I can sympathize, but I don't necessarily know if I want to have an operator that is able to take it to the next level and really stealthily move around the map with their drone. Granted, that is the only thing that they actually bring to the table. They can't get through walls, they can't get through reinforcements, their gadget is really just for information gathering, and obviously it can't jump, but I don't know if this is a direction that I want to see for Rainbow Six Siege, but of course, that is just my 2 cents. The next question is, what do you think about the rework to Kafe? Do you think it leans more towards defenders or offense? Well, if I had to say right now, I think that this is more defensive favored, but that's probably because it is essentially a brand new map. Yes, it has a very similar layout, but really no one knows all the new lines of sights and the different angles. For whatever reason, I think it's just simply because of the dynamic of an offense and defense in Siege. For some reason, it always goes in favor of the defensive side, and that's obviously no difference here. That said though, the actual map itself, I feel, is significantly better than what it was before. Yes, there are going to be some weak spots, and maybe that's just because we're getting comfortable with it, but especially on offense, there are so many more ways to actually approach these objectives. Especially on the top floor, being able to have 2 different hatches to jump down has been a dream so far. Just trying to simply get into the map a lot of times on the previous version was a nightmare, and it seems like they've alleviated a lot of those problems. Downstairs in the basement is a lot more fun to play on defense. Now offense has to actually make their way into the building, open up one of the reinforcements, and then plant the diffuser. They can't just simply smoke it out and then plant it on down. There's finally a little bit more interaction there, and you don't always have to run Echo Maestro every single plant denial in the game if you actually want to win downstairs in the basements. And so just in general, I think that Ubisoft has done a really good job here. They've been able to keep the essence of the map. It still feels and plays a lot like Kafe, but they've been able to resolve a lot of its problems. Obviously, we are still in the honeymoon phase. Maybe I will change my opinion in the next couple of weeks or months, but right now it seems like there's a lot more angles, way more ways for people to actually get in there and play the objective. That variety is something that I think is important in Rainbow Six Siege, one of the reasons why it has excelled and lasted as long. And so I gotta commend Ubisoft on this rework because I really do think that they did a very good job. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed today. Are you enjoying the rework of Kafe? Do you think they've done a good job? Do you prefer the old map? How are you enjoying the brand new operators? Are you finding them to be lackluster, really game-changing? Let me know down below in the comments. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.